Oh, Viacom. You are a piece of work, Viacom. I am not down for the count. Don't make the mistake of thinking that I am. Ugh, these past few days have been such a pain in the ass. I need something to make me feel better. Something to lighten up the mood while I try to get Viacom off my backside. What can I do? I got it. Let me give something a try. I did say a month back that I wanted to talk about Star vs. the Forces of Evil Season 2. That's exactly what I'm going to do now. The road so far has been interesting, to say the least. I can really feel the vision that Darren Nefsey has for this cartoon. If you guys want even more evidence that this is Disney's response to Steven Universe and Rebecca Sugar, this is it. Let's look at the episodes so far, one by one, starting with episode 1A, My New Wand. Star is stoked about her brand new wand, but has yet to come to grips with its power. In her attempt to give her newfound power a try, the wand sends itself, Marco, and Star's book of spells careening into her closet. Through the ambiguous help of the book elf Glossaric, Star and Marco must now overcome the ordeals present before them. For better or worse, the word ambiguous best sums up this episode. In Star's case, the nature of her new wand is different from that of her old one, and the challenge for her lies in figuring out what this distinction is and how to adapt to it. The other challenge for her is learning how to harness a magic power that is supposedly latent within her, without the help of her wand. In Marco's case, although he's come to know Star very well over the course of the past season, there are still aspects about her and Muni as a whole that are shrouded in mystery, and he has to decide whether learning this sort of sensitive information is worth jeopardizing his friendship with Star. I might be alone on this, but I find a lot of the themes in this episode to be analogous to the concept of coming of age. That transition from childhood to adolescence or adolescence to adulthood. That moment in your life when you discover something that, frankly, makes you feel uncomfortable. This ability to harness an inner magic is actually given the term dipping down. And Queen Butterfly apparently knows how to dip down, given her surprised reaction when Star brings it up to her. And the fact that she had to learn it at the age of 19, whereas her daughter is learning it at the age of 14. It can be compared to something like, say, a person's very first pimple, or hearing about the story of the birds and the bees, or even better, a person's sexual awakening. Of course, that last part could be me just being a gutter-minded idiot, but the parallels are there. I'd say this is a good episode for the character development and the nuanced building of the mythos, but it could have been better. For one, despite the name My New Wand, we don't get to see a lot of the wand in this episode, compared to the hijinks that Star and Marco go through. The other issue is the pacing, which was a problem back in Season 1. So, 1 second Star is trying to figure out how her wand works, the next second she's focusing on something else. Writers, please slow down a little bit. We're not Sonic the Hedgehog or Rainbow Dash or Usain Bolt. We can only keep up so fast. I shouldn't be so surprised about this since cartoon episodes less than half an hour long are more susceptible to this. But still, for a cartoon that's going to be driven by continuity and world building, this problem should be addressed. My New Wand gets a 3 out of 5 from me. If this development leads to a worthwhile payoff, then this is the most complaining I'm going to do about this episode. Up next is episode 1B, Ludo in the Wild. After the events of the Season 1 finale storm the castle, Ludo finds himself all alone in the middle of the wilderness. With nothing and no one to aid him, Ludo must rely on his cunning and instincts to survive. This is the polar opposite of the previous episode in every way. This episode is the kind that I'd like to call experimental. It's paced much slower than My New Wand, taking its time to construct its setting and letting things unfold naturally. This storytelling style won't resonate as well with a younger audience as it would with an older audience. Well, not at first, anyway. The scenes in this episode speak for themselves, with dialogue being kept to an absolute minimum. I have to say that the animation has gotten better since Season 1. Of course it was good back then, but now we're seeing a glimpse of what the animation would look like if it was pushed even further. By that same token, wow did they do a number on Ludo in this one. Who would have thought that the little guy is capable of kicking an astronomical amount of ass? When I first saw this guy back in Season 1, I asked myself a question that a lot of other people watching this show might have asked themselves. And that question was, are you serious? This is your main villain? This is your best foot forward? Give me a break. And this episode comes along giving me an answer to that question, doing so by shaping that answer into a baseball bat and smacking me hard in the face with it. Ludo endures the wilderness for 3 straight months, picking up several useful skills along the way, challenges and defeats a giant bald eagle and a giant spider, and by the end of the episode discovers the missing half of Star's wand. Holy crap! Where the hell was this guy in Season 1? Talk about sheer badassery. I'm inclined to believe that this was how Ludo used to be at one point in his life, before he had his castle and before he had his army of henchmen doing his dirty work for him. And once he acquired all that, he became complacent, forgetting everything he learned up to then and even regressing back to a childlike state of mind. That's just my own little theory about the character. That could be the case, but I don't know. Maybe the show will prove me wrong in the future. And does this episode remind anyone else of the film The Revenant? You know, the one starring Leo DiCaprio? The one that finally won him an Oscar? Anyway, Ludo in the Wild, fantastic episode. It does so much more with character development and world building than My New One did. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. It's my favorite episode from the season as of now. Episode 2A is titled Mr. Candle Cares. Star and Marco pay a visit to the school guidance counselor, Mr. Candle, to find out what the future holds in store for them. Neither of them are happy with what they had to hear, especially Star. Much to the delight of many a fan of the show, this episode sees the return of Tom, Star's demonic ex-boyfriend. But I'll get into that in a sec. This is an odd episode to me. I enjoy it as a whole, but something's about it rubbed me the wrong way. Allow me to clarify that Star is an awesome character. From head to toe, she is a living, breathing parody of the magical girl genre. Yet she herself is a magical girl in her own right, and a damn good one at that. I like her carefree nature, her energetic disposition, and her friendly outlook towards everything around her. However, and again this is just a personal observation, it has been stated many times in the show that she is the heiress to the Muni Kingdom. Yes, it is nice to see Marco providing comfort to Star by telling her that she can rule Muni her own way. But the way I see it, when the time comes that she finally inherits the kingdom from her parents, her carefree nature is going to play a role in that somehow. If you look back at the pilot episode and even the opening sequence, you can see that Star is not fit to rule the kingdom because of her carefree nature. This has me worrying that Star will be mostly unchanged in terms of character by then. I mean, yes, she should retain those familiar qualities that make her a likable character. But we also want to see her grow. We want to see her mature on multiple levels. We want to tell ourselves after everything has been said and done that yes, this person deserves to be a queen. That this person has the makings of a great leader. I know it's a little premature to be making a judgment call like that, but anything can happen. Another thing I didn't like, and this is just a case of unfortunate implications, is that Mr. Candle telling Marco that he's going to end up as a garbage collector. There's just something so eerie about that. So an upstanding Hispanic high school student who gets good grades on a constant basis is going to end up as a janitor? Guys, why did you put that in there? You couldn't have just said that Marco was going to be an accountant or a lawyer, which for the record are already boring and soulless career choices. Did you have to make his career opportunity demoralizing on top of being boring and soulless? Not saying that everyone watching this show is going to pick up on this the way I pick up on it, but next time be a little more careful. And now for the demon ex-boyfriend Tom. Oh my god, Tom. Since his first appearance in Blood Moon Ball, it was a no-brainer that he was going to return in some way. He wouldn't be in the intro sequence if he wasn't coming back. The real surprise is how he came back. And what a breath of fresh air that ended up being. This portrayal of Tom is a welcome break from the usual ex-boyfriends and girlfriends we often see in fiction. Now I know I'm not the only one who thinks that the needy, clingy, destructive ex-boyfriend or girlfriend is incredibly tiresome. There are people out there who take breakups much better than what the media leads us to believe. And it just infuriates me to see exes being portrayed as so petty and pathetic. That's why I'm so happy to see that Tom has come a long way since Blood Moon Ball. Granted, he was still being a bit of a douche in the first few moments of this episode. No, Tom, strapping people to giant wheels and then spinning them around is not nice. Shit like that is the makings of a douchebag. But otherwise, damn. He's really come to his senses, hasn't he? Apart from that spinning wheel thing and the ping pong game of death with Marco, he simmers down sooner or later. He even sits down and talks with Marco about the kind of person that Star is, which leads to a genuinely nice moment at the end. Regardless of their breakup, Star's happiness is still important to Tom, and possibly even vice versa. Other television shows out there can use this level of maturity as an example on how to portray failed relationships. Mr. Candle Cares gets a 3.5 out of 5. The character development here is great, especially for a side character, but the unfortunate moments do hold it back. It does have a saving grace. Gothic Star Butterfly. Hell yeah! Next on our list, episode 2B, Red Belt. After a prophetic dream about being left behind by his peers, Marco decides that it's finally time to move on to his red belt in karate. But there's one teeny tiny little problem. To Marco's surprise, he finds out that his sensei is the same rank as him, making his 5-year-long journey all the more difficult. Remember what I said in my wishlist video about me wanting to see Marco improve in his karate, and how that development in his karate can translate into his development as a person, or vice versa? This episode is what I'm talking about. We know for a fact that Marco is a bona fide ass kicker. He is capable of amazing feats, and he has a lot going for him. But he's quite susceptible to letting his inhibitions get in the way, like with his strong adherence to proper conduct and order, and his failed advances towards Jacqueline Thomas. The writers of this episode have the good sense of showing us the dangers of Marco's complacency, and the even better sense of making him break away from his inhibitions. This is Marco's story, by far. Oh, and I guess it's his sensei's story as well. But that'll depend on how much we see of him later down the season. At first glance, Red Belt looks to be your standard Karate Kid fare. After watching it, you'll come to realize that it kind of is. Somewhat. But rather than wax on, wax off, it's nail clipper on, nail clipper off. Which is disgusting! Don't ever show that again. Actually, gross out humor doesn't faze me that much, but this is a bit disconcerting. And the key difference between Red Belt and the Karate Kid is that Marco actually knows karate, so yeah. And obviously, like in the movie, the nail clipper on, nail clipper off method actually has a function. A function as awesome as Marco himself. And the best part is that despite the fact that the episode is being played for laughs, it doesn't take away from its awesomeness whatsoever. Marco and his sensei earning their red belts is an admirable moment, whether comedic or dramatic. Given the fact that Marco has been taking a crack at getting his red belt for 5 years, that black belt is well within his grasp. Best karateka ever. Red Belt might as well be called Marco under the spotlight. I look forward to seeing what the significance of his red belt is going to be. If the writers play their cards right, this could mean a more grown-up Marco that's only going to grow as the series progresses. I give Red Belt a 4 out of 5. The only reason it doesn't get a perfect score from me is an admittedly lackluster side story involving Star. She's trying to do something on Earth without magic. Good for her. She spends somewhere between 2 to 3 minutes acting like a doofus. Good for her. The end result is an unsightly mess that only the likes of her would make. Good for her. Come on, you guys, I enjoy your show. The least you could do is not put me to sleep in the middle of an interesting concept. Nevertheless, Red Belt, good episode.